Welcome everybody to the University of Applied Research and Development, our video cast. We're delighted to have with us Associate Professor Claire Matthews, who's also the Director of Academic Quality at Massey University. Hi Claire.
Hi Craig, it's nice to see you. So
Great to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in these times.
Why don't you tell us about your role and what you do? It's a very, very important role at Massey.
So, as you say, I'm the Director of Academic Quality for the Massey Business School. I've been in that role for about 7 years now. Prior to that, I was an academic teaching and researching in banking and financial advice. So I've been at the university 25 years. You have to do that, don't you? Have moved from an academic role into the current management role that I've got. As Director of Academic Quality, sorry, yeah, I'm distracted.
It's a big cat.
It is a big cat, and if he would sit down, then he would be less noticeable. Right.
What's the cat's
we
name?
Could be fine now. Ms. No.
Ms. No. Okay.
Stands
Welcome to the show, Ms. No. Right.
As Director of Academic Quality, I have responsibility for the portfolio of programs that Massey Business School offers and ensuring, as the name suggests, the quality in terms of what we offer and making sure that what we provide to students is up to their expectations, dealing with students who have concerns or where we make changes, managing that for students so that they're not disadvantaged, and ensuring that what we offer is comprehensive and appropriate and covers the range of things that we need to cover. We have accreditations that we need to manage as well, so it's part of assuring that we have the quality, so I work with managing those. We have AACSB accreditation, and we're just coming up to another review for that. We also have AMBER for our MBA, which is one of two of our programs in the portfolio. Our portfolio programs is a range, so we're dealing with students that are coming straight from school through to a lot of mature students who are in the workforce and looking to enhance their career prospects, so they have slightly different expectations. And then you've got the postgraduate students that are looking for something further. So I think that kind of covers the role.
And so is it largely data-based or statistically based? How do you gather your feedback to make decisions?
No, there is some data involved, absolutely, because you've got to be looking at student performance. You're looking at, what proportion of student, what's the number of students you've got, because that's an indication of whether you've got a product that they like. It's a matter of how well they're doing. While we don't want all the students to get A's, at one level, yes, we'd like to, but realistically, they shouldn't, because you've got a mix of students. So it's about making sure that students are getting a grade that reflects their performance in this class. So you're looking at things like that, but it's also about talking to the students and actually getting their feedback on what's working well for them, what's not working so well, and also talking to the employers who are going to take these students into the sector, who are going to employ the end product, if you like, that the university produces, and talking to them about what is their expectations of what students are going to do, but also what is their experience of what they're getting from the students that are coming out.
And so from your previous roles, because you've held a number of other positions as well with Massey and outside of the university as well, which of those positions do you think contributed to preparedness for the role that you have right now?
I'm not sure I'd say that was any one of them. I think it was all of them in different ways. As you say, I've had a number of different roles within the university. I've been a pure academic. I've had responsibilities for managing some of our sub-programs within the university from an academic perspective, but also externally. So before the university, I worked for a bank, and that teaches you a lot about accuracy, confidentiality, getting things right, and meeting consumer needs. I've also been on some boards. I've been on a council, a local authority. That teaches you a lot about dealing with people, because unfortunately, if you're a counsellor, basically no matter what you do, somebody doesn't like it and you're going to upset somebody. And so you learn to deal with the complaints and learn to take on board what people are saying, while acknowledging that sometimes people will complain simply because they don't fully understand. So there's those sorts of things. And then being on, I've been on some boards, and that teaches you about, again, mixing, interacting with different people, and just because the organisations that I was on the board with, different types of organisations are dealing with different situations, that all helps. One in particular, I was on the board of a credit union. And one of the things we had to do was, while I was on the board, was we introduced a new computer system. And as a board member, I was, well, not involved day to day, I was involved at an oversight level and making sure that we were doing that well. What was interesting was at the same time, we were introducing a new computer system at the university. Now, my role at the university was slightly different with that. As I was a bit more hands-on in terms of helping develop the business processes. I wasn't in the IT system, but I was helping to, and it was interesting to compare that. And my experience on the board meant that I understood a lot more what was actually happening at the university, and understood what the university was thinking about in terms of the introduction. Whereas had I not had that experience, I would have just been looking at it from a user perspective, which would have been somewhat different.
Yeah, that's really interesting that different organisations or different disciplines, you can cross-pollinate your ideas. Because we've got a range of different people in our Masters of Education program, from principals and directors to classroom teachers, I'd be interested to hear from you. How do you think in an elementary and high school environment, what sort of quality checks could people put in place, could educators put in place to make sure they're thinking about the different stakeholders involved in quality and providing quality education?
So I have had some involvement with secondary education, both as a parent of children going through, but also being on the board of the local high school and the local primary school. So I've been involved to that extent. Again, it's a matter of talking to the people, talking to the community, talking to the parents. So one of the things we would do is, if we were looking at making some substantial changes, we would go out and talk to the community. Because even with certainly in New Zealand, it may be different elsewhere, but certainly in New Zealand, a school is not just about the people that attend, it's about the broader community as well. And so it's important to talk to the whole community. So we would talk to them, welcome feedback, provide opportunities for feedback in terms of what's being experienced. It's also possible to talk to employers. So if you've got students going out on work experience, then obviously you can talk to the employers that are involved in that. But even if you've got students that have left and, you know, actually got into full-time employment, you can still talk to the sorts of employers. So talk to the big employers in your local community about what are they looking for in the students that are going to come out of the school. What are the skills that they need? Because there's a whole lot of academic skills that they need, but there's also some life skills which it's important for schools to be provided. So it's talking about them and talking to universities. So there's a lot of work goes on in New Zealand, talking to universities and between the Ministry of Education that oversees the schools and the universities, to make sure that what the students are coming out with is what's required by the universities in order for the students to do well when they get to university.
And so within the university that you're leading right now with Massey, what are some of the projects that you're focused on right now within your area?
Within my area, one is the pandemic. while it's not a project as such, and certainly one
Right.
prefer not to have to deal with, the reality is that it's created a change in the operating environment, and we have to manage that. So we have students that we would expect to be in New Zealand that are having to learn from offshore, which was not what they expected. We're having to manage that. We can't have students in the classroom, even if they are in New Zealand, as we would expect. So as we talk, Auckland is in a level 3 situation where we cannot have students on campus, whereas Massey has 3 campuses. We can have students at our other 2 campuses. So we also have to manage the equity so that the students are not disadvantaged in Auckland because they can't go to campus. And what we do is even thinking about exams, so we've moved away from having in-person exams and dealing with online assessments to manage that. And it's about putting in place the process. There's just a whole lot of things that have had to go on and are continuing to have discussions. So that's certainly one of the projects. Another key project is around accreditation. So I mentioned that we've got AACSB accreditation and AMBAR accreditation. Those both have re-accreditation visits coming up. And unfortunately, the pandemic has had an influence there. So whereas those visits would normally be in person, they're going to be virtual visits this year or this time around. So there's a lot of work that has to go into doing reports and preparing for the visit and providing all the information that's required to demonstrate that we should retain the accreditation. And we also have applied for a new accreditation. So we've had a lot of work going on for that. But we've so that's another key project. And the third key project that I've been working on more recently is around just reviewing our portfolio of qualifications. So working with the senior leadership team within the Massey Business School to work out what products that we've got, what qualifications that we've got actually should we remove, because it's not efficient to continue operating them. The students have demonstrated that actually they're not interested in them by not registering for them. And new qualifications do we need? How do we provide a good experience? And taking on board the changes in expectations for students. So for example, there's a growing emphasis on what's called work integrated learning. So it's that on-the-job experience, actual practical experience, not just in the classroom. So we're having discussions about how we implement that and introduce that.
The on-the-job integrated learning, that provides some challenges around assessment and quality and projects. How do you navigate that?
Well, there's just a lot of work going on there. So we do offer internships, and we have offered internships for a number of years. So that's sort of a starting point for it. So that's an opportunity for students to go out and spend time in the workplace, and that's really valuable. But you're right, it does take a lot of management. It's quite, if you like, labour intensive because it does need to be managed. And it's about having the right placements for the students, both in terms of their needs, but also in terms of the environment that they're going into, that it's safe for them, in all the different ways that you talk about safety. So it's not just physical safety, it's mental safety as well. So it's doing that, and setting up assessments tends to be a lot of reflective type assessment. So it's about thinking about what is their experience, what does that mean, and what can they learn from that experience. So even if something didn't go well, you could take a lot of learning from that. So it's about doing that. So it's a lot about relationships. I'm obviously not directly involved in that, but the people that do, it's about the relationships that they have, both with the providers of the internship opportunities, but also with the students.
So with all these things that you have going on, Claire, what do you do to de-stress as a leader at the end of the day?
Well, I'm fortunate, if you like, in that I normally, when I'm not stuck at home working because of pandemics, I have a 30-minute commute to work. So that's actually really helpful, both for on the way to work, getting into the mindset, and also coming home. I do tend to listen to, I actually usually listen to the Economist audio edition while I'm driving, which I find quite useful. So it keeps me up to date. I'm fortunate that in my commute, it's on open road. So I don't see a traffic light, I don't see a roundabout, I don't see a lot of other traffic. So I don't have the stresses that you might have in commuting in other circumstances where you've got to deal with a lot of traffic. It's not quite I'm the only one on the road, but it tends to be quite light traffic, which is quite good. So that's helpful. But I'm also very conscious of good health. So unless there are exceptional circumstances so that I have to have a really early start for some reason, then I go for a walk every morning, take the dog for a walk, and he and I have some great conversations, which is really helpful. So I watch what I eat so that which is not to say I don't eat anything that, not everything I eat is absolutely healthy, but I do have a focus on what I eat. So I'm very conscious of physical health. And also as part of that, I'm very committed to my 10,000 steps a day. So I've been doing that for a number of years now, and the only days I have missed for several years now is when I happen to have had the opportunity to travel overseas, and because of time zone differences, basically I miss a day coming home. When you're coming to New Zealand, from the other side of the world, you kind of skip a day, and so it's very hard to do 10,000 steps when you don't have a day. But beyond that, so it's part of that walking is very much that. So it's an opportunity. If you're physically healthy, you can cope better with whatever life might throw at you.
Completely agree. And I would imagine those talks with the dog in the morning would be quite a powerful way to set the scene for the day.
He provides wonderful advice.
Hey Claire, just as we wrap up in the last couple of minutes, for aspiring leaders, whether they're a classroom teacher or a principal looking for the next step, or someone in academia, what would you say might be some learning experiences or opportunities that people should take hold of before taking that next step into leadership?
One opportunity is actually to join organisations. So partly simply because I've had children, there's been opportunities to join lots of organisations. So from the local kindergarten, being at schools, sports organisations, to get involved in those sorts of things. And the opportunity to get involved with a wide range of people is actually really helpful, because as a leader, you're going to be involved with all sorts of people, and you need to know how to interact with those people. But also being on those committees, so whether you take on a specific role such as treasurer or secretary, or whether you're just there providing input and being part of the discussion, again, it's about interacting with people, thinking about the sorts of things, because all organisations, whether it is the local kindergarten, the local soccer club, whatever, they need to have people that are leading them. And so the committees do that. So by being involved in those organisations, it gives you some experiences that you can then apply. So you might think, what is the relevance? But the reality is that those all add up and help you develop different skills, which you can then bring into any leadership role that you've got.
Fantastic. Love it. Claire, really want to thank you for your time, sharing your experiences and your wisdom at this difficult time. Appreciate you making time and also rescheduling for us so we can hear from you today.
My pleasure. Glad I could help.